in 1946. The Rover Group produced the first Landrover and they launched it at the Amsterdam Motor Show as what we would now know as a crossover vehicle. And they started off with a vehicle that was known as the Landrover. It was known as an 80-inch. We're lucky enough to have a very, very early vehicle in the arena right now, and that's just going up the left-hand side of the arena as I'm looking at it. I've got the soft top on there, registration number YWG, and that's an 80-inch. That's how it all started off. And have a look at the back of that vehicle. It's got what's called a power takeoff shaft on it, so that it could do everything and sometimes a little bit more than a standard tractor could. And often a 9-hole bar on there as well, so it could also tow horse-drawn implements. And these vehicles were designed so that they could still maintain pretty much everything on the farm and also do some of the domestic chores as well, which included going out to the shops, off to the markets, going to church on a Sunday. Like I said earlier, a real crossover vehicle, capable of doing anything. Well, there was a shortage of steel after the war, so the bodies of these Land Rovers were made out of aluminium. Now, right on cue, 2 Jeeps have just come in. American ones. Now, a lot of Land Rovers drivers are like, oh, Jeeps, blooming heck. I'd rather push a Land Rover than drive a Jeep. But if it wasn't for Jeep, then the Land Rover would have never existed. Because Maurice Wilkes, who designed the Land Rover, he got the Rover Group to buy 6 of these ex-military Jeeps. They took them into the workshop to pull them all in bits, basically pinched all the good ideas off them and produced the Land Rover. So we've got 2 Willys Jeeps, I believe the Willys Jeeps. There was also Ford-made Jeeps as well. Some say that Jeep stands for just enough essential parts. However, I'm not quite sure on that. But that is certainly the case with the early Jeeps.
If you could please, yeah, thank you. Start with them Jeeps if you can. Let the Jeeps go round the four sides and then
The glory of the Land Rover is that it's basically a giant Meccano set. This is how a lot of people get into the world of DIY mechanicking. Get yourself a Land Rover, lots of different accessories and modifications that you can do with fairly minimal experience. Also got the Range Rover Classic just going past us right now. That revolutionised Land Rover in the form of getting into the slightly more luxury market. However, that Range Rover Classic, the first ones that were launched in 1971, you could still hose them out. I dare you to try and hose out a brand new Range Rover. Get the Jeeps going around the arena one more time, then we're going to start with the Jeeps and try and get the Series 1 in at the side of that. Of course, when it was initially marketed, it was just the Land Rover. Then the Series 2 came out, which means it made the first Land Rover the Series 1, but initially it was the Land Rover because it was the only one that was made back in the late 1940s. Now without meaning to bore you too much, there was the Series 1, the Series 2, the Series 2A, Series 3, 90, 110, and then very finally Defender. The last Defender was produced in 2016. We don't talk about that new fancy one at the moment. The last one was produced 2016 and it's very, very closely related to the very first, which is just driving past me at the moment. It's worked out reasonably well because that vehicle just driving past me at the moment. One of the very first Series 1s is followed by one of the very last Series 3s before they went into the world of 90 and 110. So you've got the dead basic, and straight behind it you've got pretty much every option list available, and that's the V8 county station wagon. And it really is lovely, so refined, because you have that V8 verb, and it just sounds extremely lovely and a bit lined up. Now, a lot of people call Landrovers hate, certainly not. Like I said earlier, you've got a lot to be thankful for. Have Land Rover for the Jeep, but they're two very different vehicles, especially nowadays. So there's the two military Jeeps just getting lined up. We're going to try and get that little Series 1 in at the side of them. Now, there were two derivatives mainly of the Land Rover. There was the short wheelbase and the long wheelbase. And we have an example of a Series 1 long wheelbase right in front of me now, the blue one. That's clearly work in progress. So far, the tin of blue paint only just got in to the back of the doors. And you can also see that aluminium body there. And taking it right back to the aluminium. And the glory of these vehicles as well is that you can have them as a rolling restoration. So you can still do a little bit of work on them, pick them out for the weekend, enjoy yourself. On the Monday morning, pop them back into the workshop and carry on. Now, when they were designing the Land Rover, there were a few standardizations of practical, including Ferguson's. They were poached by Land Rover Rover Group, getting their agricultural ideas and innovation. What a fantastic lineup of vehicles we've got here. It's not very often we get such a fantastic array of series vehicles. Just having a look, I don't think we've got anything newer than the early 80s. I think the newest is Brown 109. Now we're talking numbers all the time, 109, 107, 80, 88. That's the distance in inches between the middle of the front axle and the middle of the back axle. And that's how a lot of Land Rovers are identified. And if you're into your Land Rovers, you may notice that the new ones, they're marking them as 90, 110, 130. That was the case with the original Defenders, however, not the new ones. The ones built in Slovenia now. Beautiful vehicles. Certainly not really for agricultural use, although they are capable of and they're not as utilitarian as they used to be. So let's get the Jeeps out first. Where's Rocco? Oh, he's there, gibbering. Rocco? Got the Jeeps out. So as you can see, young boy's lost quite a lot of weight. So we've got a new one. We sacked the other one. We have had Kieran as a steward for many years. However, he got work commitments this weekend. So we've recruited a new young boy, and this one's called Rocco. Kieran's been in the arena for certainly, I reckon, the past 9 or 10 years here at Sheffield. This is the first event that he's missed, but it's also given Rocco a debut here at Sheffield. So he's going to be looking after the arena, along with quite a few of the other stewards as the day goes on. So I was saying earlier, we've got a Jeep here. Now there were there was numerous different companies that made Jeeps. There was Willis and also Ford. Now I'm going to stick my neck out and say this is a Willis, am I right?
You're correct.
Tell us a bit more about what we've got.
Right, so this is a 1944 made in January 1944. If you look at the registration, it starts with the letter M. That's the British registration. Because that would have been used by the Americans. So it's fairly original bits and bobs, but it's not originally as it came out of the factory. It's probably third body it's had. It was rebuilt by the British Army in the 50s as a plate on the wing. So they're all bits.
Absolutely, a huge Meccano set. Of course, if you have seen that service and potentially done the D-Day and all that, they will have been covered in salt water. When I'm not talking to you in the summer, I drive drive a gritter in the winter, and after 5 or 6 years, those gritters start falling in bits. This vehicle is what, in excess of 70, possibly 80 years old, and it will have seen some salt water in its life. So we can forgive it for having a few bits replaced. We're having a few microphone problems. I think it's the wind, so yeah. So what we're saying is, salt water, very, very old vehicle. It's going to need bits replacing, and this one, no doubt, will have happened.
What you have to remember is, this is a granddad to the Landrover.
It certainly is, yeah. This vehicle, there was quite a few bought by Landrover that went right through them to finish the ideas, and that the Landrover is the product of these vehicles. Thank you. Next up, another Willis Jeep. I think I'm going to come up here, I think these signals blowing that way. So the first fella there was saying that that's a British vehicle. This is was for the British market. This vehicle was for the American market. Now I can see that from the star that's on the bonnet that usually goes between some American flags out there.
We spent about, I think, a year and a half getting this.
Oh wow, it's got a few bolts missing, but looked perfect.
We rushed to get it here, and it turned out all right then.
It really is a lovely vehicle. Tell us what's going on up here. Is this for really angry other motorists?
Yeah, that's a reenactment. It does fire, it's a gas pump. We've not done that yet, but we're going to try it.
Are we going to try it today? Thank you anyway. Great to see you. Thank you for fetching it in. So we've seen the two Jeeps. Now we're going to see the Landrover, which is the product of the Jeep.
I know, because that's the worst thing where you stop it up here to talk and then it doesn't start.
Oh, it looks like we've got an information sheet. Look at that. I should have fetched my glasses. What have we got? Come a bit further forwards, let's have a proper look at it. So this vehicle built in 1951 and dispatched directly to the British Army. It had a military registration number. Possibly used in West Australia during Christmas Island atomic testing in 1957 to 1958. Other vehicles from this consignment used and photographed there. Sold through the military surplus by Ruddington Auctions in 1961, used as a tow truck around the Norwich area until the 1990s. Purchased as a rolling chassis built in 2013. Purchased as a rolling chassis in 2013 and rebuilt. Currently has a later engine and gearbox fitted, while the originals are being rebuilt. And this vehicle came to the 70th anniversary in Anglesey of Wales at Red Wharf Bay. I'll tell you about Red Wharf Bay in a little while. The glory of vehicles, as we said earlier, you can put later engines in, you can put engines that aren't necessarily the right engine for the vehicle. Fairly minimal experience and mechanical knowledge. So while the original engine is getting rebuilt, it's running something else. What we got in there? 2.25 petrol engine. I thought you were going to say that because they are, to be honest, fitted to the later Land Rovers, but they're really good. They use a bit of fuel, and not quite as good as the modern diesels. Of all the parts are available, and it would be an ideal transport to put in these engines. What did it start in these vehicles? Would it start with a 1600 or the 2 litre petrol engine? There are only 300 or 400 vehicles before they went from that original engine to from the original 1600 engine to the 2 litre. That was a second derivative of engine that was available for these. Thank you for mentioning it. It's great to see them in this patina as well. Not only is it wonderful to see them fresh out of the restoration workshop, also great to see them like that. And it just shows you've got that aluminium body, which tends not to rot. The only problem we have with these is when the steel touches the aluminium, you do get something called electrolytic corrosion. Now I'm running slightly late, we're hoping to get the children into the arena fairly soon. So just bear with us, we've going to be, it's bad news that we're running late on the first event, but we will try our best to get through these. To be honest, I think this is my favourite in the arena. Absolutely beautiful. A Series 3 counting station wagon, built in 1982 and refurbished in 2023 to 20. Landrover Series Stage 1 was factory fitted with a Range Rover 3.5 litre V8 engine and gearbox, and was the only Landrover Series variant produced with permanent four-wheel drive. The Series 3 Stage 1 was a project of the Thatcher government by British Leyland to try and compete with other 4x4 manufacturers, which were mainly Japanese. But they left it too late, and other manufacturers got a foothold in the market, and the £40 million spent on the project didn't go to plan, so Stage 2 of the project was abandoned. The Stage 1 wasn't a popular seller in the UK because of the 3.5 litre V8 engine, even through the fuel economy. Even though the fuel economy was almost the same as the 2.25 petrol engine. Most of the Stage 1s were exported to Australia, Africa, USA and the New Zealand Army. Purchased a massive 976, some of which were still in service until 2006. But lovely to see this vehicle here, absolutely gorgeous, so refined. When we get the V8 burbling round, but it's so refined, you struggle to actually hear that V8 sound coming out of the exhaust. Thank you.
Yeah, we are probably going to be here for a good 15 minutes.
We can just about make it out. Who have we got next? Got a little Series 2A, this is the 88. I was saying earlier on about those numbers, that's 88 inches between the middle of the front axle and the middle of the back axle. So it sounds like running a diesel engine now. Diesel not favoured by the whole of the country until around the very late 50s into the early 60s. What we got?
1962 to
It really is beautiful. Clearly got the retro bonnet on there. Liking that a lot, and fairly recently been through the paint shop. How long ago did you have this all done up?
13 years ago.
13-year restoration. It certainly is a credit to you. It certainly stood the test of time. Thank you. So we've gone from a vehicle which is almost pristine to what on earth have we got here? Now, this is a real bits and pieces vehicle. This was started off life, no doubt, as a Series 1 Land Rover. Now my ear rather is detecting a very much a later engine inside here. What have we got here?
6 Series 1.
Now it's had a few modifications, haven't we? What we have done? I was steering on a cheap Land Rover. And now these vehicles, at one point, they were worth very little, and it was a prime vehicle to just pop whatever you wanted onto it, and that's what's happened in the world of trialling. No doubt this vehicle will have pretty much been up to the drivers in water, so also being able to, there's lots of stories to tell with this vehicle. Been used as a trialer, it quite easily be put back to original spec if required, but great to see it in this car. Thank you. Land Rover produced a vehicle called the Discovery, and awfully rotted away, but it had a perfectly good engine and gearbox inside there, which made way for the older Land Rovers to be retrofitted with these engines and gearbox to make them far more usable as an everyday vehicle. If you pick one of those engines from a Discovery, which is either was done to 200 or 300 TDI, it would have made it a lot more economical, but also capable of doing 70 miles an hour on the motorway. Yes, believe it or not, some of these will do those speeds on the motorway. So back into the world of the military now. Tell us about what we've got.
Yeah, genuine military Series 3. It's not been any battle anywhere, or been around campsites and universities and stuff like that. It's got the officers running around.
Wow, so it has led a very easy life, which no doubt is one of the reasons why it ended up in preservation. Now I'm hearing a petrol engine in there. Land Rovers, well, the military, they wanted petrol up until recently. I think it was sort of late 1990s that they went into diesel. They weren't a fan of the diesel, especially in the Land Rovers. And Land Rover kept on producing petrol engine Land Rovers just for the military. Took some convincing. Eventually, I think they ordered a few of the turbo diesels, the TDIs. They certainly won't have any electronics. Because generally you can get a petrol engine running in the middle of the battlefield while you're being shot at. If a diesel engine stops, usually it needs a bit more spannering. Thank you. So this vehicle was part of the logistics course, is that right? And then NATO, we were just saying with the driver that NATO, they all had a word with each other, says, right, we're all going to go down diesel, so that the British military had to follow suit. Thank you. We are running slightly late for the parade of children's vehicles. Please bear with us, I'm hoping we've got some. Get the thumbs up from the commentary box. Now this is the start of Landrover entering the luxury market, and this is the Range Rover Classic. Of course it wasn't called the Range Rover Classic when it was built, it was just called the Range Rover, launched in 1971. And these vehicles, I mean this one has got some carpet in there, but the first Range Rovers you could still pull out with a hose pipe. What have we got? Great to see it here, and great to see a vehicle on this hill in the arena. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of these are built with V8 in, big 33.5 litre V8 engines, petrols. And of course, thanks for that discovery, and also, to be honest, some of the earlier Range Rovers, he said it was a rock box. Really good engines in there that could be transplanted. My goodness me, just look at this, still got shiny nuts and bolts on the chassis. What have we got here? I can smell the newness coming out of the window. 1974. This is absolutely beautiful. This clearly does not live outside, does it? It really is beautiful. Like the iconic Landrover, blue and cream. Beautiful vehicle. Thank you. And this is that 2.25 litre petrol engine. Iconic engine that the Rover Group produced for these vehicles. I was saying earlier on about that TDI engine out of the Discovery. This is another vehicle that's one of those engines in, which makes it go 70 miles an hour plus on the motorway. This vehicle, 1964, so there's a trailer behind to most of the shows with a tractor in it, and then Richard the driver, he also sleeps in the back, so there's a bunk in the back, everything that you could wish for a weekend away at these shows. And Land Rover, they made them on a steel chassis. That's the bit that the vehicle is built on, and that is the Achilles heel of the Land Rover. They did rot away, and you can get a galvanised chassis, which that vehicle there has got on it. I went to Land Rover factory a few years ago, and I asked them, I said, why did you not galvanise the chassis at the factories? Well, quite simply, if we galvanised the chassis at the factory, we wouldn't sell any more Land Rovers, because they would last forever. Another 109, now this is Series 2A. Tell us what we've got.
1964, and it's ex-army. I don't know, I've got some information as to where it served, but I don't understand that with research about it now. I know it came out of the army in 1972. It sold at good into and I've just worked it out in today's money, that's 5.5 grand. One or two owners. The previous owner had it, he bought it in 74 and he sold it to me in 2015, and at that stage it's been off the road for 27 years.
What state was it in after 27 years? Fabulous. My goodness, yeah, and sat outside for that amount of time. Outside as well, my goodness. So yeah, about those chassis rotting away. Bodies are generally fine, it's the chassis, bulkheads that were made. But wonderful to see here in this patina as well. So we're getting everything from right in the working clothes to a very respectable vehicle here, right up to the almost concourse and show condition. So great to see it here. Thank you. With a military one, you will notice it's got more of a square back end on it there on the chassis, that denotes that it is a military spec vehicle. There were a few little differences. Once again, sticking in the world of Series 2A's. Anyways, you can tell between these. You've got the lights in the middle, there your Series 2A's. Series C's have got them on the wings on the outside. However, there were a few Series 2A's with the lights on the outside as well. Literally, when they did the crossover, they took things from the parts bins. That's not necessarily how you do tell the difference, but it's a real good indicator. What we got here?
It's 1956
Great, well, see you. First time here in Sheffield? Are you enjoying yourself? Yeah. Wonderful stuff, thank you. How's it going to go? Of course it is. 2 pot petrol. Next we've got Martin. You might be wondering what's going on with this vehicle. Got a funny thing on the front of it, it's like a caravan cross between a Landrover. And that's because Martin tows this vehicle here behind his motorhome. This contraption on the front, which is bolted to the chassis, lowers down, drops onto the back of his motorhome. Martin, you call Richard then. Martin can sit in the comfort of the chair in his motorhome, driving along with this vehicle dotted about behind him. 2.25 litre petrol engine. It's going to, hopefully, this is going to be the first Sheffield steam that he manages to get around the arena without running out of petrol. He's just said he's got a gallon in the back. Is it full though? Oh, it is! Oh, excellent! Because this vehicle usually just drags around on the back of his motorhome, he quite often forgets to fill it up. Oh no, so the driver just saying he's nursing a faulty gearbox, so he's only got 2 gears to choose from at the moment. And I think, were you saying that's because you left it in gear and towed it in low box or something, so the gearbox was going round at 120 mile an hour? So it sounds pretty serious, and it is, to be honest, but to change the gearboxes in these vehicles, it's not too bad once you get the seat box out and all the rest of it. Certainly be done within a day for a relatively inexperienced mechanic. It would only be a couple of hours with an experienced mechanic. So, Martin was just saying there is a gearbox ready for it and it will be getting put in at some point. Thank you. Now last but certainly not least, we've got the little 107. 107 Series 1. The 107, that's the distance between the middle of the front axle and the middle of the back axle. Not very many of these vehicles. That's great to see here at Sheffield. Thank you. 1955 long wheelbase 107 with a 2 litre petrol engine, originally supplied in Dove Grey with blue wheels, registered in Doncaster, so it hasn't come very far. Later used as a tow truck and sign written by President Garage Hill. President Garage at Hill. Then used by Blacksmith in Sheffield. Purchased for £100 from Hemingway Garage Blue Breakers in Granaside, Sheffield in 1984 as an MOT failure for farm use. Restored in 2009 and taken to the Great Dorset Steam Fair that year. Currently used for off-roading and transporting anything and everything. This also attended the Landrover 70th anniversary in Anglesey, Wales in 2018. Off-roading in Wales, holds it down to, holds its own with 4-wheel drive. So a wonderful vehicle. Really do like the Series 1 Land Rovers. And we'll say about that celebration down at Anglesey, a place called Red Wharf Bay. So we'll start getting them out to run a little bit late. Maurice Wilkes, who designed the Land Rover, he went on holiday. He was the kind of fellow that couldn't really switch off. And he took his work home. He went on holiday with his family. He was sat on the beach at Red Wharf Bay in Anglesey, and he drew out the outline of the Land Rover on the beach. His design of what they were going to produce, what ultimately became today. And it's a bit of a pilgrimage in the world of Land Rover ownership, and at Red Wharf Bay at Anglesey, a lot of people believe that's where it all started. So there are a few events that centre around that area, and these Land Rover clubs, they go there and they make a weekend of it, and celebrate that area as the birthplace of the Land Rover. But when Maurice Wilkes drew out the design of the Land Rover on the beach when it was on holiday, Landrovers affecting them into the arena. Really is wonderful to see these vehicles. Very soon we're hopefully going to have a parade of children's vehicles. Thanks, other than the ones already here, thanks to anymore. Hopefully we get as many into the arena as we possibly can. So if you do have a toy agricultural vehicle, you're welcome to fetch it into the arena. We're going to do the children's parade in the next few. If you're wondering what's going on right here in the arena, we have the order of events on the back of the commentary box.